hard to follow the older crowd. Please. Older? Yeah, you're the older crowd. I'm number 8, by the way. I grew up in a revolving house of kids where there was always something going on. Jimmy, Gary, and their friend Lanny always jamming to music in their room that was separated from the house. Jim on trumpet, Gary on drums, Lanny on guitar. I thought they were a band, but Gary says they weren't. Then going into the house, Yvonne would be playing the piano. There was a love for music in our home. My earliest memory of Jim, this is kind of embarrassing to say, but I was like 3 or 4. Jimmy had decided it was time for me to quit sucking a bottle. So he grabbed my bottle and threw it under my grandpa's house, which was right behind our house. I was traumatized, to say the least. I ran to my room and started sucking my thumb. Yeah. Then I had to have braces. As a child, we were always playing outside. Jim loved building things. I think Jim and Gary built the go-karts. And Denise and I were the motors. And we pushed the big kids up and down the road. That was our job. So nervous, sorry. Jim always, also built a big playhouse. And to me, that was so awesome as a little kid, having a big playhouse. He also built a tree house for us to play on. I love that tree house. It was like 3 stories. Well, to me back then, it was 3 stories high, and it had a pole to slide down on. It was the greatest place to play. I remember we played softball in the field. As a family, our family was so big we had enough players. Sometimes the neighbors would join us, but there was always activities going on. Jim rode his bike to my cousin's house. I think it was like 17 miles from our house. He told me I was a girl and couldn't make it. So Denise and I proved him wrong. We rode our little bikes all the way to the Higgs house. If anyone knew my brother Jim, you knew how competitive he was. From playing sports on board games, or it was always from playing with sports, and then on board games, it was always fun playing with him. He always had to be the winner, you know. And as a kid, I remember waking up to Grandpa's voice saying, "Get up, you're burning daylight." It was like 3 or 4 in the morning. But every morning, Jim and my siblings would get up and go to work at the bakery with Mom and Dad. Stephen recalls that if they didn't get up, Dad would take the hose and spray them with cold water. The bakery was where I'd love to go, see my brothers and my older sisters. Before going to school, I'd walk there. It was like a second home. I remember Jimmy being a shy person. Before he left for a church mission, he came back home and gave the talk at church, and he spoke so elegantly, and all these big words flowed out of his mouth. I was in awe and so impressed at how much he changed. He definitely was a high achiever. Jim also bought a Jaguar. It had a wood panel on the dashboard. I loved that car. He took us for rides. I thought Jimmy was the coolest. When Jim started dating girls, they would always ask for James, so I started calling him James. The name sounded so distinguished and it fit him. My favorite memories are when Jim, Yvonne's friends would come over and hang out at the house. They played piano and sang songs. I loved hanging out with them. But when they went to do things outside the house, I felt left out. I was too young to go. They made life look so fun. Jimmy self-taught himself to play the piano. I enjoyed listening to him. I was envious of his talents. And then I have what Matt said. When Jim we're at Thanksgiving and did the talent show of Neil Diamond. It was such a surprise. You never knew what Jim could do, but he was awesome. He did an awesome job. I remember going to a Fox family reunion and seeing Jim. We were all pitching our tents close to each other. And I asked Jim, where's his tent? And he said, it was so far away from everyone else, and he loved it. I was worried about him because I thought the bears would get him. And I thought, he's brave. Another occasion, Jim had been working on a car getting it finished. He was at my dad's place. So I got to visit with him for a while he was perfecting his car. He was in such a good mood, so happy. He finally finished it. He picked up a plastic container of honey and set it in the back of the car where it fell over. Everywhere in the car. Let's say this calm, mellow brother of mine came unglued for about 10 to 15 minutes before he calmed down. He was such a perfectionist. In his head, the car was ruined. He asked me if I would buy his car. I only said yes after I was sure he really wanted to sell it. But I was so happy to get a new car, even with honey. I have lots of memories of Jim and will cherish them. Jim had a beautiful spirit. We discussed religion, politics, and other things. I admire his wisdom and what a great man he has become. He has always been a big influence on me. He will always be a big part of my life. I'm thankful for such a wonderful brother who showed me kindness and love all my life. Love you, Jim.